Brothers and sisters, happy Easter. May the light of Christ just shine in your life. May you experience the radiance of His presence, that peace, that His loving presence that makes us feel safe, protected, and above all that gives us and fortifies us with the power to overcome all evil. I prayed for you all very much in San Giovanni, in this amazing place where you couldn't but feel and think about the passion of Jesus, especially the way Padre Pio suffered, but his suffering was immensely fruitful, just like the cross. He suffered in a way that drew the power of grace into people's lives, the way that people found such freedom in the sacrament of confession, especially with him. He spent sometimes 14 hours a day in confession, knowing the power of the sacrament of confession. So I think, let us all want to receive something of the resurrection through the sacrament of confession, and make use of this amazing sacrament, that we're freed from our burdens, that God administers healing to our soul in the sacrament, that the Lord will help us to overcome the areas of our life that steal our freedom. The Lord has risen from the dead. That this is the miracle of miracles of the Lord. It's what made the disciples realize this Jesus is divine, and we too have to answer that. St. Paul says if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, we may as well pack up and go home. We may as well just finish everything, because then our faith is a hoax. If Jesus is not who He says He is, if He hasn't risen from the dead and has conquered death and has given the ultimate proof of His divinity, then if He hasn't done that, then why would we believe the rest of His words or the witness of the disciples? But at the heart of our Christian faith is that Christ has risen, that He has beaten and conquered sin and death, and that we really have a power in our life to help us by the power of His grace to survive death and to live, to reach heaven. None of us know how to reach heaven, brothers and sisters, in the sense that we have no idea where it is. It's only a place we could be brought to by God. We know it's a real place. We know that from the testimony of the saints, like St. Padre Pio, he saw Jesus and Mary all the time. They came to him. Souls from purgatory came to him on a daily basis, and when people would come to St. Padre Pio, he would say to them, tell them about their loved ones who ask for prayers and stuff. So the world beyond is real, and the resurrection shows us that Christ, the light of Christ, penetrates the darkest areas of human existence, the darkest struggles, our darkest addictions, all those things that the light of Christ reaches, and with Christ we can truly overcome our difficulties. If many of you had privilege of knowing friends or people who've had addictions, they come to, when they overcome their addictions, they come to know the power and protection of Christ in an incredible way. They end up being the most beautiful lovers of Jesus, most lovers of God, because they've been broken and they've experienced the resurrection. One of our brothers that I live with, Father Paul Murray, he says that he did so much work with addicts, and he became so convinced of the power of grace, seeing them transformed through prayer, through the sacraments, through Jesus. One of the brothers that I live with is from India, and he shared a testimony with me when he had this experience of going to a part of India, a very, very densely Hindu area, but also there was a lot of people involved, a lot of black magic and occult practices, and many Dominicans in their province, they're sent to this place by this priest who runs a very powerful ministry of Eucharistic adoration, reaching out to a lot of people who are broken, who are hurt, who are suffering, who are sick. And he was asked to sing the Exultet. And for those of you who may not know, the Exultet is that song that opens the Easter Vigil Mass, where the candle is lit, the church is in darkness, and the candle is lit with the presence of Christ. And that candle comes in, but that candle, actually that fire, that sacred fire, is a real presence of Christ in the Easter Vigil in a very special way. It's not just lighting a candle. And he said to me that that's when he discovered that the Easter candle that is lit is not just a candle. He experienced the power of that light of Christ. So when the candle was lit and he came into this church, and there were 15,000 people there, there were people who were possessed, and they started to shriek. Demons started to come out of people. He said he'd never seen the likes of it. There were deaf people who were healed by the light of Christ. There were blind people who were gained back their sight. There were people who couldn't walk. He told me he saw this with his own eyes, and he saw the power of the Christ, power of the risen Lord. But these people were desperate. They had no doctors. They were so poor they couldn't get treatment. So God comes to them. And I've heard about stories like this in some parts of the world where there's no access to anything. It's people's faith that allows them to receive healing. And the Lord works in the desperate, works with those who really can cry from their heart for faith. And so when he told me this story, I was really struck. And when I was at the Easter Vigil last night in San Giovanni, and I saw the candle, I was just seeing, wow, the light of Christ, the presence of Christ coming into darkness. And the Lord, we know in Holy Saturday, went into the underworld, went into Sheol, went into the depths of darkness. And when the Lord comes into our life, he comes into the tomb. He comes into our life like a tomb, and he comes to transform it. He comes to go into the deepest parts, especially when we receive in the Holy Eucharist. Receive him into us, and the Lord will bring his light into areas of our psyche, our mind, our heart that we don't even know needs healing. So brothers and sisters, this Easter I pray that you just meditate on the light of Christ. And in that great song, the Exultet, when there's a part of it that says Mother Church, she's invaded with light, she shakes for joy.